Hi, this is Brian with ActiveMelody.com. Well, this week's guitar lesson is a must-watch for those of you that are interested in improving your rhythm and just coming up with some fill licks and some more soulful way of expressing yourself when you're playing lead and rhythm. And that's what we're going to be doing. This is kind of an old school soul gospel. He's got a lot of blues licks, and it's somewhere between rhythm and lead. So it's a lot of fun, and I've got the lesson split into two parts. So in this video, we'll take a look at the first half. If you'd like to watch the second half, and download the tablature and the MP3 jam tracks so that you can practice playing everything, you can get those things by going to ActiveMelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and do a search for EP330. Alright, so after listening to the intro part, some of you may think, well, that sounds kind of basic and simple, and it actually is. It's not very complex or technical what we're about to learn, but there's so much practical application in this lesson. This is one of my favorite lessons that I've done, because there's just so much that I find myself using from this lesson. This is like real world 101 stuff for those of you that are learning to improvise and compliment other people or even write your own music. And so we're going to be taking the caged system, C-A-G-E-D, and we're going to be putting it to practical use. So that's really what a lot of this lesson is. And it's really neither rhythm nor lead. It's somewhere between the two. It's like a hybrid between rhythm and lead. And I love this style of playing. It reminds me of Steve Cropper's way of playing. If you listen to those Stax recordings of the way that he would play rhythm, he'll play rhythm chord stuff, but then you'll hear him play these fill licks, which are technically lead parts, and he's kind of combining the two. It's hard to sort of say, well, what's he playing? Is he playing rhythm or lead? And the answer is he's kind of playing both. So that's what we're going to be doing. This has got kind of a gospel, like old school R&B, very blues based as well, feel to it. And so the song is played in the key of C, and there's 4 chords in this. So the chords are, we have a C, an F, a G, and an A minor. These are basic chords that you already know. And if I were to give you the chord chart for this and have them written out, you'd see C, F, C, G, A minor, F, and then C. And a lot of you, if I said play that rhythm, a lot of you would come down. When you see a C chord, you think, okay, C chord, down in first position. F, down here. G, down here. A minor, down here, and so forth. And you'd be correct on that. That's not wrong at all. Those are the right chords. But you can get so much more emotion out of those chords if you learn to play them in different spots, because you don't have those open strings ringing out, so you have full control over the chords. And then I like to take these little triads out of the chord, just like the 3 notes out of them, and use those, because it's just much more practical, especially if you have a full band like you do with the jam track for this. Now for the tone that I'm using, I am playing through a Kemper profiler back here, and I have it on a matchless profile, matchless amp profile. And I realize most people don't have a profiler, but you don't have to have that if you want to get this tone. You can dial this in with just about any amp, as long as you can get a little bit of overdrive. So I have the guitar all the way up and the tone all the way up on this guitar. And you can see if I play it aggressively, you can hear a little bit of overdrive. It's not super heavy, but if I play it lightly, it's nice and clean. And so I love that, dialing in an amp right about there. It's sort of like I have full control. I can make it growl if I want to, or I can play something really pretty and sweet from not having to even touch the amp. So there's no pedals or anything, but that's what I'm using. There's also a little bit of reverb. Okay, so let's get into this song. So it starts off, we're going to play over the C chord, and it sounds like this. I love this because I use it all the time. But what I'm doing is I'm playing the A chord shape, but we're playing it up here, which makes it a C chord. And what I mean by that is, if you think of the A chord that you learn in first position, if you take that chord shape and you just slide that up so that you're barring now on the 5th fret, and I realize some people use their ring finger for that, but then you have your index finger on the 3rd fret, 5th string, play the middle 4 strings, and you're playing a C chord using the A chord shape. So that's what we mean when we talk about caged. That's the A out of C-A-G-E-D. So I'm playing it up here, and I hit it twice. I can play it like this. So the first time I let it ring out. The second time I stop it. Just sort of mute the strings with my left hand, and then also my right hand comes down to stop it from ringing out. And then I came up and went. Now to do this, I'm going to take where my bar was, and I'm using my pinky for that bar, but I slide my index finger up and put it in the same fret, and I'm barring all 5 strings in this case. Now I'm going to play the 5th string. I'm going to do a hammer-on with my ring finger up here to the 7th fret 5th string. And then I go ahead and play strings 4, 3, and 2. So what you end up with is you have a C chord that looks like this, and then you have a C chord that looks like this. It's the same chord. The only difference is this bass note changes from here to here. But what that allows you to do rhythmically is all this kind of fill stuff, and I think of Hendrix when I think of that. I always think of Wind Cries Mary, playing out of that chord shape. And so that's what all that is. It's just taking this A chord shape and then you're sliding up into this position. And what that allows you to do, if I'm playing over C chord, is I have between the 5th fret and the 7th fret on the 5th string, 4th string, and 3rd string. And I can noodle around with that. And the other way that you can look at this, not to throw too many curveballs at you, but this is major pentatonic scale pattern 1 for the key of C. There's your C chord using the A chord shape. There's your major pentatonic scale. That should have made a big light bulb go off for a lot of you. You can now see this chord shape and you can see your major pentatonic scale pattern 1 and how they connect right here on this 5th fret. So, backing up, then we have C, C. Now the song goes to an F. Now I could have went F, F, C. That would have been fine. But instead, I came up here. I was already in position anyway. So I'm keeping that bar on the 5th fret. Our 5th fret is our best friend here for the key of C. And what I do is, I'm barring the first 4 strings, I do a hammer-on with my ring finger to that 7th fret 4th string, just like we talked about. But then my middle finger goes down at the same time on the 6th fret 2nd string. And what you can see if you look at strings 4, 3, and 2, that is an F chord. That's an F triad. So now, if you're ever playing something and you want to go from the 1 to the 4 chord, you've got your 1 chord. This is another way of playing the C chord, and just playing the triad there. 4, 3, and 2. Strings 4, 3, and 2. 1 chord, 4 chord. And look at this. Remember the rule. If you, whatever you do for your 4 chord, slide that up 2 frets. There's your 5 chord, which would be our G chord. So now you've got C, F, G, C. You can get so much mileage as a rhythm player or a lead player from knowing just that. If you don't learn anything else in this entire lesson, walk away with knowing C, F, G. So now to quiz you on this knowledge, and you can pause this and try it out yourself, but take all of that knowledge and play it over a D chord. So play your 1, 4, 5 in the key of D. So that would be a D, a G, and an A chord. See if you can do that on your own. I'll assume you've paused and tried to do that. But your D chord would be using that A chord shape. So we're playing it up here. D, G, A. So now you can start to use this stuff when you play. And the other way that I've referred to this is the Keith Richards thing, where you go from the 1, hammer on to the 4 chord. You hear Keith using that quite a bit, that technique. So let's back it up from the beginning. We have C. So there's your F, a muted strum, and then the C chord, the triad there, strings 4, 3, and 2 from the 5th fret. And then I came up to the G chord. Same technique that we played for the F chord, we're just doing it up here. Now I'm barring on the 7th fret, strings 4, 3, and 2, doing the hammer on, and playing the G chord. And then the A minor chord here. Now I could have played the A minor here. I could have played it up here. I could have played it up here. This is why it's important to know your 3 different minor chord shapes. There's really only 3. I mean, there's others, but there's 3 main ones. That's how I always think of it. And you can check out a lesson that I did, which was EP330, and I go through those 3 minor chord voicings. But I'm playing the minor chord like this A minor chord. So I'm barring the first 3 strings on the 5th fret, and then my ring finger is on the 7th fret 4th string. That's an A minor here. So you got one here and here. You can also think of that as your A minor chord if you do a full bar, where these two fingers are making the E minor chord shape. I didn't need the full chord though, I just needed the top 4 strings. So let's back it up from the beginning. We have So what's left of this first time through is going back to the F chord and then back to the C chord. And I could have done that. I just could have went F, F, C. But I thought, just to keep it interesting and sort of in the vein of Steve Cropper, we're going to throw in a little lead lick or a fill lick, however you want to look at that. So let me show you how to play it first. So we're up here on the 6th fret 2nd string with my middle finger, and then my index finger is just behind it on the 5th fret 2nd string. So we play 6th fret and then do a 5th fret with a hammer on and a pull off. Ring finger goes down on the 7th fret 3rd string, and then I play the 5th fret 3rd string. Alright, so what is that? Where does that come from? That's just part of the major scale for the key of C. So C, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. If you look at that C chord shape and you start there on the C note, which would be the 5th fret 3rd string, you can walk right up the major scale there. And that's all that is. The other way you can think about this, maybe this makes it easier to think about, is to picture your major pentatonic scale pattern 1 that I just mentioned earlier. Remember how I said that that connects to your bar here? So you could play that. Most of these 5 of the notes from the major scale are in that major pentatonic scale. You're just going to add 2 extra notes. That note and that note. Everything else is the same. So hopefully that makes it easier. And that's where that lick comes from. Now to conclude it, I want... And that's using that same little shape that I talked about here. There's your C chord. We're going to be up here, but going between the 5th fret and the 7th fret. In this case, we're going to be playing the 4th and the 3rd string. We're going to be hammer on, and when I do the hammer on, I use my ring finger to the 7th fret 4th string. And then take that off and play strings 4 and 3 behind the 5th fret here. And then ring finger goes down on the 7th fret 5th string. And I do a slide down to the 5th fret. And then back to the C chord. So it goes... It's just a little fill. Now, that would be a great fill to practice using. So if you were just playing a C chord... Now mix that with the first one. You start to get ideas for what you can do rhythmically to enhance your playing instead of just going, chords down in first position. It can give you so much more mileage, and you can get more expressive, especially now that you know where your C chord is and your major pentatonic scale pattern 1 is. Now you can play your C. You can throw in little fill licks because you know how to get there right away off of this chord shape, and you can do that off that chord shape anywhere on the neck now. Alright, so let me back up and play up to that point where we are. Okay, now the second time through, we're going to come up here and play in a higher spot on the neck. So after we play the C chord, I came up and played this. So that's my middle finger on the 9th fret 3rd string, and I slid into that. And then I put my index finger down on the 8th fret 1st string. Now what is this? Well, it's a harmonized 6 over your C chord, but the way that I was picturing that was I was picturing the C chord up here. That's where you bar all 6 strings on the 8th fret, and then these 3 fingers make the E chord out of or the E chord shape. They're not making an E chord. But if you picture your E chord down in first position, slide it all the way up here, and then bar, so your finger's replacing where the nut would be. And now we're playing a C chord in this position. I was picturing that, so I was just thinking about, okay, so I just played some stuff down here. Where would be the next place I would want to go in the neck? So I could picture this. So I played those two notes, which would be strings 3 and 1 out of your C chord. That's all that is. So the timing for that goes. And then I went. Now let me show you how to play that. This will be another big takeaway. So we're going to bar the first 2 strings on the 8th fret. I'm going to do a hammer on to the 10th fret 2nd string. And then take that finger away. So now we're playing the 8th fret strings 1 and 2 by themselves. Ring finger goes down on the 10th fret 3rd string. But we're playing strings 2 and 3. Now I'm leaving the bar there the whole time. My index finger on the 8th fret strings 1 and 2. So we have. And then middle finger goes down on the 9th fret 3rd string. And look at that. Well, that's just the triad, the top part of your C chord. Not the entire bar, we're just playing the top 3 strings. So we have. Now that's an awesome little lick that's using the major scale for C. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, like we just learned down there. So when I played, those are 4 notes out of the major scale for C. So we have. You can see how those notes live off of this chord shape. And that's where that comes from. So if you like the sound of that little harmonized lick, and I don't have any clue where I got this lick. I've been playing that for years. I don't know if I came up with it myself or if I heard someone else do it. Probably heard someone else do it. But it's so useful because you can picture that lick off of that chord shape. So if I said to do it over a G chord now, you can picture your G chord down here. It's kind of country, it's kind of bluesy, it's just very practical. And when you start to mix that, so for instance, with another C chord up here, well, that's using your D chord shape out of Cage. You can start to get all kinds of embellishments and things that just sound so soulful and bluesy off of those basic chord shapes. Okay, so the second time through, now this is where the song goes to the G and then the A minor. So what I played was a G up here. Now I'm barring the first 3 strings, actually the first 4 strings on the 12th fret, but I'm playing strings 4, 3, and 2. Now what is that? Well, that's your G chord using the A chord shape. So remember we played it over the C chord. Well, I was picturing the G chord up here. But I just wanted that little triad, just like we did with the C chord. So I'm pulling that out, which is strings 4, 3, and 2. So once I played that, then I do a hammer-on pull-off with my middle finger on the 13th fret 2nd string. So like that. And then I played the 12th fret 3rd string. So all together. Now that's an awesome embellishment off of that chord shape. This is another light bulb. There's so much substance in this. I'm telling you, each one of these little pieces you can use and get a lot of mileage out of. So if we were playing something in D now, you could go. You've got this little embellishment that works off of that chord shape. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Okay. There's your C. Here's your G. And then A minor. Now I chose to play one here. I could have played it up here, but I like the sound of this just coming down a little bit. And there's 3 minor chord shapes. I mentioned that earlier, but that's what I'm playing off. So I have an A minor here. I have one here. The way that I think about this chord shape, the way that I picture how to play it. Actually, let me show you how to play it, and then I'll show you my thought process. But these 3 fingers are making the D7 chord shape. If you know how to do that in first position, which I know you do, you take that same chord shape and you slide it up so that your pinky and your ring finger are up here on the 10th fret, but strings 2 and 4, and then your middle finger is on the 9th fret, string 3. And then your index finger goes down on the 8th fret, 1st string. That's an A minor chord. using all 4 strings there. Now the way that I think of getting to this is I picture the A minor pentatonic scale pattern 1. That first note there, that's where I put my index finger. And that becomes an A minor chord. So now if you can picture that minor pentatonic scale pattern 1, you should be able to see 2 minor chords that live within that. You've got this one, and then you've got this one. You can see how they both anchor to that pentatonic pattern. And these are just my ways of how I visualize these things. If they don't work for you, find something that does, but always kind of connect it back to some chord shape or a little scale or something that you already know, and then you can get to them easily. Now if I need to play an A minor chord, I can very quickly find that 8th fret 1st string, which is where my index finger goes, and I know how to put the other fingers in place. And it takes a little practice kind of getting them to go into place if you're not used to playing that chord shape, but you can do it. There's your G to A minor, and then I played. Now this is a repeat of what we've done before. Remember we played the C chord? We're going to do the same technique, but when I play it like this, I'm playing the F chord. So we're going to play the F back to the C. So that's the F chord using the A chord shape out of Cage. Remember I just showed you the G chord. You go down 2 frets, that's your 4 chord. There's your F chord. So I played, and that's sliding up, playing the same chord, but remember we changed the bass note. We got one here, we've got one here, just like we did with the C. We're going to do the same thing. And then I went back to the C chord, which is just your bar there. Now instead of playing all 6 strings, the way that I played it was just 4 strings. The top 4 strings out of that. That's the lick. Isn't that cool? That's going from an F to a C. So instead of just playing an F, C, now you've got a little variety. You can do something like, this gives you some more options. So I'm going to end this part 1 video there. That's a lot of information, and if you're a premium member, I always like to plug this because it's such an awesome deal. You'll have access to the tablature and the MP3 jam tracks so that you can practice everything that we're learning here. You can play along with the jam track and learn how to play in the right timing and everything. So I'm going to back up and play through this first half one more time, and then I'll see you in part 2 where we'll learn the second half. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4.